All right, you guys, this is going to be a fun episode. I'm super excited. We have for you guys Dan Churchill. Did I say your last name right?
Nailed it.
All
It's
right.
exactly like Winston. So like if anyone
Perfect.
gets how to say it, just think of the Prime Minister of England during a pretty momentous occasion with America.
Oh, okay, perfect, perfect. Um, awesome. And so I'm super excited to talk to you because one, you have a book coming out next week. So we're recording this on May 17th. Book comes out on the 21st.
Mm-hmm. 21st of
Eh,
May.
21st of May. I pre-ordered it. I'm excited to see what recipes are in it. Maybe you can tell us on the podcast because this isn't going to come out until Tuesday next week, the day it comes out. So if you want to share any hot recipes that are in the book, feel free to do so. But as our listeners know, before we dive into all that fun stuff, they heard your bio already. We're going to do your two truths and a lie.
Okay, two truths and a lie. All right. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to just say, Kai, thanks for having me. And
Of course.
I love the space that we're in. I feel grateful that I can call it part of my job. So it's
Yes.
cool to just chat to. I'm pumped to talk to you today. So listeners, I'm going to say at the top of the episode, if it's the first time listening to this podcast, make sure you like and subscribe and leave a little review because it's so important for the team. So I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
So two truths and a lie. Let's go. So if you thought about this, so number one, before I was a chef, I worked at Subway for 8 years.
Okay.
All right. Number two, I have a resting heart rate of 34.
Hmm. Okay.
And number three, I once did a plank with a 10-pound weight on my back for an entire episode of How I Met Your Mother.
I don't know how long those episodes are, but I would imagine they're maybe like 30 minutes.
Yeah. I say
Okay.
some. I mean, I don't know how long. What do you reckon? 30, maybe 35 minutes? No, 30.
Okay.
You're right. No, it's probably less because you can add in ad breaks and stuff. It's probably like
Yeah.
24 minutes.
Did you take a rest during the commercial breaks, or is this all the way through, or was there commercial breaks?
I mean, I can't remember.
Because it was a lie? Or no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. I'm gonna take a guess at which one is the lie, but don't tell me the answer because we'll reveal it at the end for the listeners. I feel like all of these are plausible.
Mhm.
These are good. Like this is a good stump one. Resting heart rate 34. That's like I know you're a runner. It's definitely plausible. Um, maybe your resting heart rate's like 35. I'm gonna go with that one as the lie, but don't tell me the answer. I'm gonna sit on that one for a little bit. Okay. We'll wait to reveal the answer to that one for our listeners at the end, but give us a little bit of background about how you got into passion for cooking and what you're currently up to right now.
Yeah, so I think passion for cooking, mate, started being the middle child of three boys
Mm.
to my mom and dad. So, when you're middle of three very active young Churchills, you just need to eat and you better eat things that you love. And so I just
Yeah.
learned to, like, mum just had to keep cooking. So it got to the point where dad really realized that not only did she need help, but ultimately we loved the moments we were sitting around the table together and watching TV shows, particularly around food. And so we wouldn't have a lot of time together as a team, like as a family, that often growing up. But these were the key moments, and dad had he really saw that. And so after him thinking about ways he loves to give his children education, dad's got a very unique way of looking at life. He put together a timetable and encouraged us to cook for the rest of the family. And so I've just always been creative with that. Like I think about all the new things I pick up, like even to this day at my age now. And I'm like, I very much realize and recognize I'm a creative. So I love visuals. I love doing things. Like, I know it sounds easy to say I love go-karting. Like I went go-karting the other week, and like just even understanding the particulars of going around a car, like the wheel of a car, and like the best way to, like, that really fascinated me, to playing guitar and things like that. So cooking is always obviously extended into that role. And when I was actually pursuing I was in high school. I'm like, do I want to actually become a chef? And I thought I did, but I fortunately, but also I say fortunately, but unfortunately, took a job, or at least a stage, as they call it, in a fine dining catering restaurant, which was
Mm,
a really bad idea, but it was a really good idea because it made me realize I didn't want to be a catering chef.
mm,
It made me realize that I didn't want to peel broad beans for 90 hours a week because it wasn't being creative, despite what I thought chefs were. So I continued to stay at school, and I was when I finished school, I was like, well, I don't want to be a chef because it clearly just is boring. I just do the same monotonous thing over and over again. And as someone who has a diverse, way of looking at the world, I don't want to be doing the same thing. It won't be stimulating enough. But so I pursued something that I love, which was sport performance. And so I
mm.
actually ended up doing an undergrad and then transferring to a postgrad, a master's degree in exercise science. So in that time, I was still cooking at home. So from the age of like 11 up till, starting my undergraduate degree at the age of 18, 19, I was cooking at home, doing everything from family meals, and I loved it. So I still loved cooking. I just was like, maybe I don't want to pursue it as a profession. At the same time, I became a strength conditioning coach. I work with athletes, individuals to help improve their performance. And I started working with sporting teams, professional sporting teams in Australia.
Nice.
And I think the connection came to me in that we love the idea of eating. We love going out to dinner. People do love cooking. And I was able to recognize that, but this is back then, it's like 15 years ago. There was a huge disconnect, maybe 10 years ago. Was it? Yeah, maybe 12 years ago.
Mm,
A huge disconnect of like understanding how to apply the nutritional information and nutritionists were saying. And I call like cooking like applied nutrition, at least what I do in a way. And so I recognized cooking because obviously you're just doing it at home. I understood human performance. I understand studies of nutrition because that's what my master's degree was. And so what I did was I essentially just combined the two when I was able to help solve the problems when like these nutritionists were not able to get their point across. So I gave recipes to these athletes, and what turned out to be like a helpful skill actually turned into a competitive skill. So they started to like take in turns to between the team. This is a squad of 26 players, and they decided to have like little cooking competitions. And I essentially put
mm.
that like that all those recipes together and all the banter and formed that into a cookbook and sold that cookbook. And that made me realize I do want to be a chef. So like I found the right kitchen to work in, and by night I was working in a bunch of different restaurants. By day I was a strength conditioning coach, and
Wow.
eventually I had to choose one. And so I went with the chef route.
Cool. So with the kind of back when you started making recipes for them, I totally understand what you're saying too, because in my undergrad, it's totally spot on. It's like they teach you numbers and calculations, but then how do you put those numbers into a plate of food for someone and make them understand what that looks like? Were you working alongside like a dietitian and taking those numbers? Were you running the numbers yourself and preparing the meals off of those targets, or how are you going about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, I think it applies to anyone in life in general. Like the curriculum of a school typically is very, um, I'm not very good at English by any means. It's more of a math person, but I would say the word I'm searching for is intellectual,
Mm,
whereas when you get into the real world, it's practical. And I
mm,
don't feel there was enough practical, well, not enough, but the focus on most of our industries and their respective universities is the intellectual part, whereas the practical part is where you actually apply what you do. That's where you have the argument of like, do you even need school anymore? Because is it better to go straight into the workforce?
yeah.
But I digress. It's everyone up to them to decide, and I don't want to. It's shiny anyway from having a college experience, as I always wish I did at some point. But anyway, I found working with a dietitian was probably better at the start because straight up they're a dietitian. They
Mhm,
lead numbers. My skill set, and if I was to say what my job was able to take what they were asking for, the
mhm,
numbers, and put into food. I knew why she was asking for them to hit certain macronutrients, or the blood work they were getting showed they were low in certain iron, and how the best
mhm,
way. But like instead of saying to like an athlete, make sure you consume X amount of numbers every day, it's like, all right, dude, I want you to make sure you have this amount of salmon with this amount of like starch. If you miss this amount, make sure the next 2 hours you find a way to use this snack to get this. So like essentially what I did was I put numbers into food in my head. And so that all they had to do was think food when it came to numbers, if that made sense.
yeah. Awesome. That's great. And
Yeah, it's cool.
so with your cookbook that's coming out, Are there numbers in there?
So really, really good question. And we went to and fro on this for a while. People
Yeah.
can get the numbers by downloading an ebook,
Okay.
which is for free.
Hmm.
But initially, when we were speaking to the publisher, we didn't want people to feel numbers were the ultimate like way to look at food.
Hmm.
I think I've said this, and I had this in when I was having my initial chat with them. It's like numbers are really good guides. Unfortunately, they can be healthy too,
Hmm.
unhealthy too. Like they're
Right.
habits that you can form that, people get on a scale, and the term
Hmm.
number on the scale is, a reference to how healthy they are, which is completely
Right.
false. If you were to, I always use this as a reference. Like I'm pretty fit and I'm pretty lean, yet I'm referred to as an unhealthy individual. Well, not unhealthy, but the BMI, which is a poor index,
Oh
says
gosh, yeah.
weight. So but it's still a number that unfortunately in a lot of the world, not just Americans, still reference. And
Yeah.
it's not even an education thing. It's not fair to say it's education. It's just like it's been out there. And so people just simply reference it. And it does hold its place. Like the BMI diet does hold its place for certain situations, but it doesn't take into account a couple of extra parameters that I think is unfair for the public to then make a decision on where they stand. So for that same principle, I didn't want to go too far-fetched in it. If people really wanted to get the guide, they can. It's simple. It's nutrients in it, but yeah, it's
That's great. I think that's a smart way to do it. I mean, certainly I could see that as a resource where, working with an athlete who wants to prep their own food, if there's a resource and I can say, hey, yeah, these numbers for this recipe work really well. Check page 87 for the, I don't know what recipe, So I think that's a great way to approach it. And yeah, you're spot on. Numbers can be hurtful and numbers can be helpful. So yeah, giving them the option, I think is wise. That's excellent.
Yeah, like we
Um,
make sure we at the front of the book we talk through like how to calculate certain things. It's important for you to understand calorie metrics and all that just as a guide and a principle.
mhm.
But yeah, I didn't want you having to think every day to sit down and work it out. Like there's another way, like I don't say is the best way to do it, but if someone's short on time, they can also use ChatGPT now to understand certain
Yeah.
things. Personally, that's actually what I've been doing is I've been going through a new program for myself.
Mm.
Instead of having to write down all the nutritional numbers, I just go to ChatGPT and activate the macronutrient calculator. And what's great about
Oh,
it is you can be very specific on it. You can be like,
yeah.
I don't know, I got this smoothie from this place, and just through the interwebs, it will be able to look at the thing and have a rough, like when I say rough, it's still rough. It's not completely accurate,
Yeah.
but have a very good understanding of the macronutrient of a certain brand or restaurant, stuff like that.
Oh, interesting. I've never used it like that. That's an interesting way to use it. I had someone tell me that they kind of used it in the reverse. They got macros from a coach and then they put into Chat GPT, share with me recipes that have 40 grams of protein and blah, blah, blah. But when we actually looked at the recipes, they were way off. Like, so there's
Yeah,
certainly
like
some room for error.
100%. Like we actually made a chat GPT called Eat Like a Legend.
Oh, cool.
And the idea behind it is you can take a photo of your fridge
Oh,
and tell you what recipes to create from it.
oh, that's great.
So like instead of having to, I guess, like a biggest barrier, like again, the concept of me helping people cook more is like breaking down barriers. Biggest ones
Hmm.
like time, cost, and then skill. So they're
Yeah.
always the three major ones. When it comes to like skill, it's also an education thing. So when you look in your fridge, you may have like 4 or 5 ingredients that actually go well together. But the
Yeah.
idea of thinking what to do is the most complicating. So if you just take a photo of your fridge and it's got this, this, and this, like you can make this and it has a whole recipe. It's like, oh, I don't have to go to the store. I just
Yeah.
have everything here that I need. And so that was a way of breaking it all down. So that's taken a lot of work, but that's also out in the interwebs too.
That's great. I love that. That's a great idea. Okay, I'm like so excited to ask you so many
I know.
questions.
Sorry, we've gone 20 minutes and already a damn. I've already
It's
had
all
7
good.
playing the fun and games.
It's all good. So okay, jumping back to working with the teams and the athletes, what were some recipes that you were making for them or combinations of foods that you found to be really successful or that the athletes really enjoyed?
Yeah, great question. So to give context, we're talking rugby union, rugby league, and then
Mm,
NFL. So rugby union, rugby league, plays pretty continuous. They're exerting, I guess, a pretty dominant aerobic system with interlock of like, a bit of the anaerobic and then very, very infrequent moments of, I guess, ATP straight, short burst. Unlike the NFL, which has got like 6-second efforts, it's like very continuous, but so you're constantly moving, and then you have moments where you're using the obviously more intense energy systems. So that obviously in itself is a way to calculate what we need. On top of that, we look at the type of skills they require, not just aerobically. So you look at their force, their force interaction. So in rugby union, there's a high force output. So you need muscle mass, you need ability for, you really need your brain to be, pretty dialed in for muscle coordination. And so fat comes into play with hormones there. So all this is to say, I would say the meals that I made for those individuals were very much built around high complex carbs. I'd say the majority of their food intake was, say, 50% carbs, probably 20% protein and 30% fat.
Wow. Yeah.
Very, very big ratio there of carbs. And, I'd say, like, when I say 20%, these players are still having more than 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So that's a measure we always look at when just even looking to put mass on. But these guys are big dudes already, and they're still already having that much amount of protein. So it's not to say they weren't having a lot of protein, even though it was 20% or whatever it was still a large amount. They just need to consume so much carbohydrates to combat the amount of work that we're doing, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a meal like that is like, honestly, it's typically speaking, we do an array of pastas, then also a lot of potato, like sweet potato. But when I do it, like, I made dishes that were just fun and different. It wasn't just like, for example, I made a sweet potato mash that included so many different deliciousness in it, and like in a way that was still relatable, but it made it so much more fun to consume. Same with chicken. Like, I taught them how to perfect juicy chicken breast. So what I did was I took a lot of foundational principles that these guys and girls needed to learn away from the field, that really make, life enjoyable, not just cooking and being home, but they needed things to take away their mind from the intensity and the stress of play, like, which typically is something that we all look towards when we want to relax. But for them, it was the game that, they had as a profession. So part of that was like, okay, give them a skill set to perfect. And juicy chicken breast is something that I love to create. And when you get a perfectly succulent, tender, like good balance between salt, umami, and juicy, like acidic flavor, it is so hard to combat, even against a chicken thigh or dark meat. So, we do a lot of that. So I'd focus more on the skills and upkeep of foundational principles around cooking, and then through that include recipes for them to like take away. And the reason for that is, don't like lead, or like essentially like I want to give them the principles that are foundational for them to be empowered. I want to empower them. I don't want to tell them what to do, and when they're not with me, they're not doing it. It's when I'm not with me, I want them to be doing it. And so finding ways that help them encourage that is really, really important. But that's for like a rugby player. And then interestingly, you look at like a AFL player. AFL's Aussie rules at the time, and to this day, it was the most studied GPS tracking of any sport. In fact, I believe between that and soccer, I think AFL was one of the first, if not the first, sports to be tracked through data. And so I was actually part of my master's degree as well. I was like understanding that. So it's fascinating. I'd say to this day, I still feel that AFL athletes are some of the most, when I say athletic, it's like they run sometimes 11 to 12 miles a game, but the level of intensity they are running at is so high. Like the proportion of the other two systems in comparison to their base system is so high. And then on top of that, what's really curious about it is they also have to have skills. So it's not just having the aerobic capacity. They have to be able to move in all 360 to view, because it's not like they're going forward and back in like, say, rugby or AFL or football. But also then they have to be able to skillfully kick the ball, they have to hand pass it, and they have to tackle, like, so they do everything. It's crazy. And jump and catch and communicate, and then and still drink water every now and then, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. Talking about all the cooking and teaching them how to do the cooking, is that something your readers will learn from the cookbook, or are you going to start a cooking class that I can sign up for?
Well, I do want to do like a pretty consistent cooking class thing digitally. So, it's always been my mission to impact the world and make the best food videos and things like that that people can relate to. So,
Mhm.
you definitely can from the book. Like Eat Like a Legend has foundational principles. One of the ones we talk about is like how to season like a legend. Like seasoning is so important. I think it's like, I would say it's like 50% of cooking. So like, yeah, you
Mm.
got skills like chopping and like searing and understand. But if you know how to season, if you know when you're tasting like what you're looking for, changes the game. And I make it a little easier because I use the very fun context of, going out to a bar or a party or a club to help, really understand. So for example, I talk about, the importance of salt, and salt's a club promoter, then acidity is the DJ, and you can read into that from the cookbook. It's pretty fun.
Speaking of salt, what is your go-to salt? I've heard very mixed reviews, like sea salt versus
Yeah.
pink Himalayan. What salt do you like?
It actually depends on the time, but
Okay.
molten salt is the best salt in my opinion. Like, yeah, if I get pink Himalayan, if it's truly pink Himalayan, like
Mm.
there's a lot of fake pink Himalayans out there, but obviously pink Himalayan's got some amazing trace minerals in there.
Hmm.
But I just love flaky molten salt. It's incredible.
Okay, awesome. Um, Goodness. Okay, so
Yeah.
I know you did a marathon race. Well, was it recently? When did you do the Boston?
Boston was what, April, about a month ago. A month ago today, yeah.
Okay, so you did just do. I watched your YouTube series.
Oh,
So
thank
we'll
you so
link that in the
much.
show notes below.
Yeah, go shake it up. Yeah, everyone go
Yeah.
to YouTube and have fun there.
Yeah. How did you fuel yourself? Like what kind of things were you cooking for yourself for preparation and recovery for your trainings for
Yeah,
that?
that's a good question. So I was pretty much, so I was, according to my Whoop, I was expending around like 39 to 4,000 calories a day on average. And that was just, the block, even that's like, it's funny because even in the kitchen at the restaurant on those days, I still have a really high strain. So when I look at that metric and like, is calories from that wearable the most accurate? I wouldn't say it's the most accurate in general, like to be so. It's the most accurate specifically, but it's a good guidance. So for
Right.
example, if I look at my data over the course of 6 months, I can see the trend is like, hey, dude, you expend a lot of energy. So like if it's very, very wide, like some days it's 2,000, others 4,000, then I'm like, okay, I got to be a bit more careful, but consistently like 35 and above. So
Mm.
for that reasoning, I was consuming so much food. I would have, I'd get up and I would have, a G1M from NBPM, which is I think 40 grams of carbs and about
Mm.
50 milligrams of sodium.
Mm.
So I'd have one of those. I'd have a coffee, so I get my caffeine in. I'd go for my first session of run. I'd follow that up with another scoop of that. So that's 80 grams of carbs, 700 milligrams of sodium, and probably add in another 500 milligrams of sodium. So I'd probably have, before 7:30 a.m., I'd have 80 grams of carbs just from the beverage,
Hmm.
and around 850 milligrams of sodium, which is really important for
Yeah.
me specifically. But then on top of that, I'd go straight into like oats. I'd have 3 eggs. Then I have a smoothie, which was like 2 bananas. I'd have my next meal, which is like rice, protein, or some sort of protein, and then like smash the veg, like so much veg. I'd probably have a second shake in the afternoon. And what I do in the afternoon is if I do whey protein in the morning, I have vegan protein in the afternoon. And there's a
Mm.
couple of reasons. Like I'm big on diversity of plants in general, but also I don't want to overload my system by having the same amount of whey protein going in every day after day.
Yeah.
To help support that by having a diversity there. And then if I can, I smash in some yogurt and berries before having a big dinner. So it's kind of like what my
Nice.
day was like. And I think the biggest thing to note is like I was making sure I'd probably work towards a 50% carb ratio as well,
Hmm.
20% protein, 30% fat. And I was just smashing electrolytes, like
Yeah.
so much electrolytes. It's something that we talk about a lot. And I think in this world like that we live in, it's much better from a health perspective to say you need electrolytes in your day.
Mhm.
We see the New York Times wrote an article talking about sodium about a month ago and how
Mm.
it's very misleading in packaging. Like packaged foods contains a lot more salt than we actually know. But and I think like if you're consuming packaged food all the time, then yeah, you have to be concerned about it. But if you're an athlete or someone who does a lot of these, longer runs per se and endurance efforts, then you probably are missing out on electrolytes in your day. I use the same, study that we reference, it's been around for a few years now, but on average, we sweat between 350 to 700 milligrams of sodium per hour of work. And so if you're a heavy sweater like me, I'm upwards of that 700 milligrams. So if I reference what I do in the morning, my 850 milligrams with that, the post and then also the inclusion. So what are we looking at? 350 before, 350 after, plus the 500. You're looking at what, 1,200 milligrams of sodium. If I'm training if I'm doing my 16 Ks or my 10 miles, or if I'm doing, more than that, yeah, that's easily what I need just for that one session, not to mention what I need throughout the day as well. So it's something to consider. And obviously, I'm on the higher end of sweating. So like if you don't sweat that much, or if you haven't done, best thing to do is do a salt test. You can do a sweat test. Go to Amazon, really cheap. Just go pick one of those up.
Did you do the Gatorade sweat patch? Or the Nix?
Yes, that's what I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Really easy to do.
Yeah. Those are pretty, the one issue I've seen with some of my clients is they're such good sweaters. They like sweat through the patch. So, note for those checking them out, but the research behind them is pretty spot on to like the similar in-lab wash down method. So yeah, that's great. And so, talking about salt, are you using for like sports nutrition? Are you putting like table salt stuff? Or are you using sports nutrition products? Are you making all your own stuff?
So yes, so I travel a lot, and when I travel, I notice that particularly on planes, I just lose a lot of sweat. I lose a lot of sodium.
Yeah.
My face gets really dry, and I don't have the salt on planes. I just don't like the table salt they have. Already salt in the food they give obviously has to be salty in general, but you don't know how salty it is. It's actually you have so much salt in it, but your taste buds work differently at in the air. So you add salt to something that's already salty, and so you actually consume more salt than you need. So I'm more effective when I use G1M or an electrolyte, like say BPN's electrolyte, 500 milligrams in every scoop. So I feel really safe given that I know it. I'm very close friends with Nick. So like the way that his team tests that product is great. And then when it comes to general, like as a chef, I'm always around salt. So I know where to use it, when to use it. If I'm in trouble, I just, add some flaky sea salt or Himalayan salt where I can.
Awesome. And then, do you want to tell us a little bit about the restaurant you run now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the executive chef at the One Hotel Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. So essentially been there it'll come up in a year there. So my contract was for a year to, expand the brand in that part of the world, and looking to go looking to grow beyond on Brooklyn, which is really, really exciting. So I just had a conversation today. So, I love the brand. I love our focus on sustainability and the progressiveness we are with comes to activity, wellness. It's awesome.
Yeah. What is the menu like there? Imagine it varies through the seasons maybe, or
Yes,
weekly?
we do 3 to 4 menus a year, depending on seasonality and how we can get food. But typically it's like, I have a very big focus on open flame cooking. If anyone goes to my Instagram, you'll see one of my more recent posts of me just in a singlet over an open flame, when I was in Nashville, actually. It's a lot of fun. I got a lot of comments on that one from friends questioning what I was actually doing there. But I have a shovel in my hand over a flame. It is like the most outback Aussie look ever, and that's my favorite type of cooking. So I try to take that flame aspect and bring it to Brooklyn as best as I can, and with a twist on modern Australia.
Nice. And I noticed in one of your YouTube series you were talking about like vegan cooking or like more plant-based cooking. How do you incorporate some of that, and what are your thoughts on that potentially for like the athlete population?
Yeah, like I love plants. I think I hinted at it earlier. And despite me not being strictly plant-based, I think my subpar mission, like when I say subpar mission, it's like if I have my mission of helping people, change the world through food, my next one is to say eat more plants. I've always lived by this concept that whilst we have this very big argument of we should be plant-based and we should eat more meat and there's blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, okay, guys, if we take a step back and say that irrespective of which we just need more plants. I believe, and looking at a lot of the data, you can see in the research, it's like it's actually more of a component of how much plants you are having compared to if you eat meat or strictly just plants. Fortunately for plant eaters, they get a lot of plants because that's what they eat. They can also be unhealthy. Like
Right.
plant-based individuals can be unhealthy. It's true. But I don't think we can live without having to eat a diversity of plants. So
Mm-hmm.
in the book, I do this. I talk so much about eating more plants. I talk about what's called the fifth macronutrient. So that's a big component of one of the big philosophies we have in there. But I love plants. I love making plants sexy. I love making people open up their eyes to how awesome plants are. There's actually a whole section in the book on how to make tofu sexy, which is a lot of
Oh,
fun.
nice. Yeah.
And if I make things sexy in food, I think people just want to cook more. So
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. And with recipes that are in the cookbook, what is the range of like cook time for some of those things in there?
we'll have a whole section around like 12 minutes and under.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So I did a section. Essentially, like I want to make a whole, like the book itself is broken down into context
Mm.
rather than breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's like if you are in this situation, so if you're trying to impress a girl or a guy, this is the chapter for you. Like this is the one that shows a
Nice.
little bit of skill, doesn't make you look like an idiot, but you come out looking like a champion. And
Nice.
whether it's your first date or you're forever engaged or married, it's still going to make someone who's so important to you smile. Then I have the section where it's like, if you come home from service and you have had nothing to eat and you go back out because it's New York City and you need to make something, this is the section for you. I made that. I literally tested it. I'd come home from work and be like, my mates would be like, bro, like come back out. We're going out. I'm like, fuck, just finished service. And I'm like, I look at the time. I'm like, I haven't eaten. All right, shit. So here I go. So
Yeah.
like
Nice.
hot down, it's fun. So there's things like that as well. And so time varies. Like things that are in press or feast section, which is like the one where you're cooking for multiple people on a Sunday or whatever it is. That's
Nice.
actually going to be longer because it's going to be taking you have more time to prepare and think plan ahead. Whereas like some of these dishes, you're just like, I don't have that time, which is the majority of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the factors of time and skill came into it.
Wow. And talking about meal like prepping and quality, do you have any tips for our listeners on maybe things they should prioritize or think about when they're just getting started with meal prepping?
Yeah, I think if you're just getting started, I'd work on rather than do like 4 days worth of meal prepping, just do like a couple
Mm-hmm.
because I feel that people try to run before they can actually walk in a lot of things. And meal prepping is something that can be sustainable if you do it properly, but you will definitely not want to sustain it if you're throwing things out, you didn't like it or you screwed it up. So like it's a lot easier to add a few more amounts to a meal once you've mastered it than trying to work out how to master a meal from a bigger match. And like,
Yeah.
I can tell you this right now, the more you chop, the better you get at it. So start out by doing a few of them because by the time you get to like, I don't know, where you're at with my level, it's actually fun chopping up mushrooms because it's quick and actually looks badass. So it looks really, when I'm chopping mushrooms in already if my team are like in the line, we're an open kitchen. So like when people walk down, like, oh, that's so cool. And you're just like, that's awesome.
That's
So I'd
great.
say like, yeah, start that, like use it. I always say use sheet tray. Sheet trays are just the most amazing best friends when it comes to meal
Mhm.
prepping. You can get everything on it. If you have a grill, I would say grill everything. Like grill's got the biggest surface area, right? So like
Mhm.
I like to take all my veggies, all my meats and stuff like that up to the grill
Mm.
because instead of me having taking long, I can just do it all at once. I can like
Yeah.
tear off my fish, my chicken, my veggies, put them on their respective containers, and then I just come downstairs, add my starch, and it's game on.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I definitely I want to check that out. What are your thoughts on these like instant pots and air fryers and
I am first to say I had an ego around air fryers. I'm not gonna even lie. It's air fryers came out. I'm like, what is this? They're ruining it for
yeah.
us. And then like I used one. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, this thing is amazing. And so I'm fully on board. Like it was literally my ego. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
shut up.
Oh man.
I love them because they're getting people to cook more. I think
Mm.
that they're fantastic in like I'm actually amazed in what they can do. Like
Mm.
someone every now and then, like on my TikTok or Instagram, someone's like comments on a video, it's like, hey chef, can you recreate this? And I was like, look at it, I go, you can make a frittata inside it. Like
Oh wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
So it's really they're really great. And also like it's convenient. The biggest thing we overlook is the actual amount of time it takes to preheat an oven. So when you preheat an oven, it can take like 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So like when you're doing an air fryer, you can use it roast in an oven situation. You don't have to wait. It's much.
Yeah. 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 That is true. I like haven't taken the plunge on an Instant Pot or anything yet, but everybody keeps telling me like you can cook chicken breast in like 12 minutes or something crazy. Have you
Yeah, look,
tried this?
look, there's a lot of gadgets out there, like a lot of stuff from I work with Breville, and I'm just super
Oh
proud
yeah.
we're bringing out. It's like everything from like, I mean, the coffee machine. I
Mm,
know it's a bit of a different, but like I'm a coffee snob. I'm
mhm.
Australian, so like that was that's awesome. But also, some of the other appliances that are just bringing in technology to help people cook more, and like just in general, I think we're getting
Yeah.
some really good technology around food appliances that are really making it much more approachable for the home cook to actually have fun.
Hmm. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
learn how to puree. If you learn how to puree, like puree is like a sexy thing, right? If you put a puree down on a plate, everyone's just like, oh, hey, what's this sauce you've created? It looks
Yeah.
amazing. Oh, this thing? Oh,
Yeah.
this thing, great. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
What is that gadget that's like, is that the like puree gadget where it's like, if you're watching on the video, folks, I'm like, it's long, right? And then it has a little blade on the bottom and you
You
put it in a
you
pot?
you look like Ricky Bobby and Talladega Nights. I'm going to do it with your hands. That was you're not.
Don't watch the video version, listeners.
Please watch the video. That's amazing. So are you talking about the upright blender where it's like the stick
Yeah,
blender?
is that how you puree, or can someone just throw it in like a Vitamix?
Yeah, you can use. So I've got a like just a tip. Like any I'd say a higher power blender is the best. You can
Okay.
use a stick blender, but like
Hmm.
if you rock the high power blender, like Breville's got one where you have like the smoothie container, which you can also
Mm.
take off and have like a typical jar container, which is great because sometimes the contents are so small, so you want the blade to get around. Like you have to add more to get the blade around it. So
Yeah.
and same with the Vitamix, like that's the same situation, but Breville's got a smaller one, so it makes things a lot more easier.
Cool. And any other like kitchen gadgets you're a huge fan of that would be useful in terms of someone at home like starting, or anything suggested from your cookbook that would help?
Yeah, honestly, I think like it goes that saying, but a good set of knives, there's even a good chef
Mm,
knife. And I'm not saying you have to spend a lot of money on it, but if you take care of your knife, so don't chuck it in a drawer, like at least unprotected, don't put it in the dishwasher. I'm not going to say sharpen it because you're probably not going to do it, but I'm saying if you just get a good knife, it does help with cooking. It's not only safer, it's much more fun.
yeah.
And then I'd say between that and yeah, a good fry pan, like obviously you don't want anything that's going to have any issues on your health.
Yeah.
So like I like Hexclad. You just get like the 12-inch from Hexclad. It's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What type of, I have a Hexclad, so I'm glad you said that. So I got that one. What type of knives do you recommend?
Oh, you've got a range out there that are really good for the home. Like I've got some pretty badass Japanese chef like
Mm.
custom made knives. So I'm
Hmm.
not gonna say everyone goes and do that because I wouldn't expect you to spend that stupid amount of money that I did. But I would get like Global's good. There's Made In's basic. When I say basic, their foundational line's really, really good too. Um, oh, there was one more that hit me up recently. Actually, it starts with an M. Material. I'm a big fan of Material. I think they're really good. So you can get like, I'm looking at it right now. You can get a 3-piece knife set for $245, but
Okay.
also Hexclad's got them as well. Like Hexclad's got knives now as well. You can
Hmm.
get a 170. Like, so it depends on your budget, but like this is like above just a basic knife. So if you just want good quality knives for under $200, like get
Hmm.
Material or Hexclad. They're great.
Hmm. Now I have to ask you, I know we're getting close on time. I have so many like cooking questions to ask you. Thoughts on olive oil?
Oh, you're talking to a wannabe Italian. So I love olive oil. I love extra. Most importantly, when I say this, I love extra virgin olive oil. Anything outside of extra virgin olive oil, you're dead to me. Don't touch me. It's not worth it. It's bad for your health. Just don't even do it.
Yeah, we have a close to us, 15 minutes away. We have an olive oil tasting shop, and it is the coolest thing because they break down on each olive oil like metal bin, like the antioxidant content and the flavor profile, and you can it's pretty cool.
So dope, man. That's
Yeah,
so freaking cool.
it's
That's
really
so awesome. Also, I find people who have like a relationship with an extra virgin olive oil farm are really just quirky, fun people to talk to. They're so passionate about it. It's like a som, but even more relatable, you know, like a sommelier from wine. So if anyone here is passionate about extra virgin olive oil, maybe has a garden or like some sort of relationship with them, good on you. We love
Yeah.
you.
That's awesome. Okay, so I do want to be mindful of your time. So let's see. I just want to run through my list here, see if we hit anything else. Okay, one last question, and then we'll go back to your two truths and a lie. So, what upcoming projects are you excited about that are coming up for you in the future?
Oh, dude, I got so many. I'm really like excited to be doing more of my outdoor cooking and YouTube content. So
Mhm.
YouTube's been so much fun, like really leaning into that. I got some exciting things coming up with Amazon as
Oh,
well,
nice.
which has been really, really fun. So like being able to actually do all that on a long format TV show ideas and stuff like that is really, really fun. But
Awesome.
yeah, I'm excited for that. Obviously, I'm excited for Leadville again, to bring the buckle home, which would be fun.
Nice.
And yeah, that's kind of
Are
what I'm
you
excited about.
running or biking Leadville?
Running.
Good for you. That's
Yeah, I think
that's
I'd rather run it though. I don't want you to sing on the bike. It's challenging.
Oh. Yes, I could get that. I'm more of the I'm better on two wheels than I am on running, so I
You
understand it from
are?
the
Okay.
opposite lens.
We
Oh
can
yeah.
tag. We can tag. We can do the
Yeah.
biathlon.
I got to get my red blood cells ready for the altitude. Okay, if we circle back to your two truths and a lie, we had before you were a chef, you worked at Subway for 8 years. You have a resting heart rate of 34. And you once did a plank with 10 pounds on your back through an entire episode of How I Met Your Mother. I thought the lie was the resting heart rate. Which one was it?
Well, I didn't want to give it away, but when you asked me what, how long was How I Met Your Mother? I didn't want to be like, well, it was 24 minutes and 32 seconds because I counted every second of it.
Yeah.
But it was about 24 minutes and 32 seconds.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it was pretty funny because like I sat there and my brother was like, you can't do a plank for more than 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, I reckon I can do it. I got to 10 minutes. I'm just gonna keep going. And
Yeah.
I goes, you get to a point, I call it the pain like hypothesis. Like after like 4 minutes, a plank pain is pretty much the same the whole way through.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's the same. So that was true. I famously, so you know, yeah, I was like in my little region of where I lived in Sydney, I won a competition as the fastest sandwich artist of my age group to go travel to Hawaii to compete in the global Subway championships. Unfortunately, I had a state championship rugby that weekend, so I couldn't go. But yes, I worked at Subway for 8 years, and my
Wow.
resting heart rate is actually around 30. It's gotten down to 27 before, and
Wow.
yeah, I'm quantifiably to the CTO of Whoop, the healthiest person on their platform.
Oh my goodness. Whoa. So like when you go, wait, is your blood pressure really low too? Like when you go to the doctor, are they like,
It's chill. It's
yeah.
like classic amount. Yeah, it's interesting. My stroke volume is
Mm.
through the roof. Like my capacity on my heart to like just pump. It's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of hearts, apparently. Well, we hope anyway.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you track your steps, like being a chef and in the kitchen on your feet all day and then training for
Not not steps. I track my strain. So like
okay, yeah.
so for example, this is the thing. Like when I started wearing Whoop, I was like blown away by my strain on the days I didn't do training. So like
Mm,
I'm like, oh, you get a rest day. Then go to work in the restaurant. And I'm walking. I'm like, holy shit.
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't rest at all. Actually, it was more strenuous.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got factors outside of physical strain. You've got, mental and cognitive strain. But yeah, man,
Hmm.
and you move like, especially in a hotel environment, it's not just the kitchen, like the base of the kitchen. You're like all over the hotel. You're moving in different areas. There's like
Wow.
4 kitchens. So yeah, it's a lot of movement.
Gosh. I bet you clock like, I mean, miles in the like on your feet.
Yeah, so the funniest part about a joke we did was so when I was training for Leadville last year, I used to run marathons every Saturday. It was part of like my long thing before shift.
Mm.
So I'd run around Manhattan and go into work. And so like the craziest thing was I would do all that, and then I'd work at the restaurant, and I'd smash like a 30K at the restaurant.
Wow.
One shift where like I did 27 kilometers because I like we had banquet, and then also it was like I went back so much, and it was so I finished the marathon at when was it? I started at 5, finished at around like 8:45, got into work around 10:30, and then I was there all day, 10:30 till like 1 a.m.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
we were just moving the whole time. The next day, I drank a lot of I drank a lot of electrolytes, and I
Wow.
jumped in the boots.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Good for you. Kudos. That is impressive. I'm glad you're wearing a Whoop because they, yeah, probably love seeing your tracking your
Oh, they did.
data.
That was a fun day for them. We're like, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay, well, I know you have a bunch of other podcasts today. So where can people find you, follow you? Where can they order your book? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, YouTube, which is really cool that you referenced that, is awesome. It's just Dan Churchill, I think. Or it could be Dan the Healthy Cook. Yeah, it's Dan the Healthy Cook. Everywhere else, you just find Dan Churchill, Instagram, TikTok, and then my website, danchurchill.com. If you go to my website, you can obviously pick up Eat Like a Legend, but it's also wherever books are sold, because I can say that right now. So this book is out where books are sold. You obviously get it online at all the respective digital retailers. And yeah, I just want to say thanks for your support, and makes a really good Father's Day gift. So
Hey, just in time.
if you are a mother, if you are a son, if you are a daughter, if you are a wife, if you are a friend if you're a husband telling other husbands this is what you need, anything, just like this is a really good present to get a dude. So it's also a great gift for a girl, but I'm just because
Awesome.
it's around the corner.
Well, I will certainly be excited when my copy arrives, and I'll have to tag you and see if I cooked some of the recipes right.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah,
go. That's exciting.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dan. This has been super fun. Lots of great questions I got to pick your brain on, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Thanks for an awesome pod, mate. Appreciate you.